And there's a melancholy that can happen because we recognize that as people move and they grow away, we're changing. And that's also because we realize that we're progressing through life and that things can never be what they once were. And because oftentimes we just remember a time that we were happy. And we think back to that time that we were happy and we wish we could go back there. Because we're all kings in exile, we're all queens in exile. That's what happiness is. We're remembering what it was like back then. And we realize it's never going to be that again. But that's also what makes those moments so incredibly precious, because you can find yourself in the middle of something great and wonderful and beautiful if you can pause your life for just a second. Of course, you can't pause it, but you know what I mean. If you can pause your reflection for just a minute and realize this is a great moment. I'm never going to live this moment again. When I just said that, you're never going to live that moment again either. Or this one, or this one, or whichever one. And so sometimes we think like, wow, I'm glad I can never live this moment again. I'm glad that this moment is gone. And sometimes we just think we can get so melancholy thinking, man, I'm never going to be able to have that moment again. And that's true. That's true. But you're going to have other moments if you stay open to them. You're not the same person. Nobody is. It's not the same situation. It looks similar, and it's only the roughness of our eyes and the roughness of our intellects that we think any two situations are the same, or any two people are the same. And humans were so dramatically different. That's because the important part of us is always changing. And that's because we're capable of changing, because we're so much more than just a physical anything. How often are they changing?
Always.
Right now? Shoot. Right now?
Right now.
Damn.
Every second. I mean, if you want something
Now?
Yes.
Oh, dude. It's like we're standing in a river. It's a great metaphor for Heraclitus because you'll oftentimes see a river as a metaphor for time. Because what's the truth about time? It's passing. And the river is passing as well. And with both of them, you can live under some deep illusions about them. Like right now, it's 11:15. It's like, oh my God, it's going to go on forever, And then all of a sudden, it's 11:25, and we're excited about the passing of time, because we're thinking about, at 1 o'clock, I get to go do whatever it is you're going to go do at 1 o'clock. But you realize that at that point, you're like excited about the passing of your life. It's like, dude, I'm going to be an hour and a half closer to death, but at least I won't be in here. At least I'll be doing something else. But the truth about, same with the river, like you can fall into this illusion that you're standing in the river and you're just going to stand there forever. But you're not, because the river that's hitting you right now is a different river than it was 2 seconds ago. In other words, when you're standing in the river, water's going past your feet. But the water that's hitting your feet, you're saying it's the water. But the water is made up of molecules of water, and the molecules that hit your legs just now are now downstream. And constantly, it's hitting you, and it's constantly passing away. The soil underneath the river is being eroded. Other soil is being washed in its place. And there are little tiny changes that you don't notice, probably. And so you step in the river and you stand there for an hour and you're like, I've been standing in this river for an hour. Ish. Because also, in that 1 hour that it's taken you to stand there, we've also traveled through space, 56,000 miles? Because we're flying through space. And so you're never really talking about the present. We're always talking about the past. As I'm telling you this sentence right now, you're a different person than you were at the beginning of the sentence. And I'm a different person than I was at the beginning of this sentence. Because I've said some words and you've heard some words. The light has gone into all of our eyes, and it's changed our neurochemical makeup little tiny degrees. But how much does it have to change before it's changed forever? I just told you, little tiny degrees. If I'm walking on a straight line this way, I go for 100 yards, I'm going to be where I would be. If I change my feet just, oops, that's too much, even just this much, and I walk for 100 yards, and you walk for 100 yards straight line, we're going to be in two dramatically different places because of a change of just 1 degree. And the farther out you go, the more dramatic the difference between us is going to be. And this is why when people change and you go, oh, they just changed a little bit though. Yeah, but you realize that when you get to the end of 100 yards, you're in dramatically different places. And this is one of the things that makes those relationship things so hard, because sometimes people just grow apart, and it's sad because we miss the person. We don't miss the person as they are, we miss the person as they once were. And they probably miss us as we once were as well. We come together and we share these epochs, and we walk together for so long that it almost feels like we're never going to go apart. But then we hit the 20-yard line and we notice some differences. We hit the 30, the 40, the 50-yard line, we're halfway through, and we realize that whereas we used to be able to hold hands and touch, we're now separated by 5 yards, 10 yards. And then we get to the end of those 100 yards and we just think, wow, how did we grow apart so far? Because it's the little tiny changes. It's the little tiny changes that change you. And you're going to be changed by them. There's no way you can go through life and not be changed by them. You can never stay the same person. We might wish that we could keep things exactly as they are forever, and that's neat. It'd be cool if we did. But I ask you, you want to relive today? What would you do with tomorrow? You wish days could last for 28 hours rather than 24 hours. What would you do with the extra 4 hours? And I guess if you could answer that question, if I had 4 more hours, I would do blah. Great, now you know what you want to do, and you know what you need to do. So now take those 4 hours and put them into your 24. In other words, find 4 other hours that you can get rid of, and do those things that are meaningful to you. Find time for the people, because you're going to walk with people, and there will be some people that maybe it's only a quarter of a degree, so that when you get to the end of those 100 yards, end of your life, you're still pretty close. You're still relatively close. But man, lives are like this. You have a whole bunch of them intersecting. And sometimes you're fortunate in that you get to share an epoch with somebody. And sometimes the epoch is only just that time period right there. And sometimes people come through your life and you share just a little bit with them here and there. And there's a melancholy that can happen because we recognize that as people move and they grow away, we're changing. And that's also because we realize that we're progressing through life, and that things can never be what they once were. And because oftentimes we just remember a time that we were happy, and we think back to that time that we were happy, and we wish we could go back there. Because we're all kings in exile, we're all queens in exile. That's what happiness is. We're remembering what it was like back then. And we realize it's never going to be that again. But that's also what makes those moments so incredibly precious, because you can find yourself in the middle of something great and wonderful and beautiful if you can pause your life for just a second. Of course, you can't pause it, but you know what I mean. If you can pause your reflection for just a minute and realize this is a great moment. I'm never going to live this moment again. When I just said that, you're never going to live that moment again either. Or this one, or this one, or whichever one. And so sometimes we think wow, I'm glad I can never live this moment again. I'm glad that this moment is gone. And sometimes we just think you can get so melancholy thinking, man, I'm never going to be able to have that moment again. And that's true. That's true. But you're going to have other moments if you stay open to them. But you got to stay open to them. None of us steps in the same river twice. Because even if you go back and you go to Disneyland with your friends, and then, maybe 15 years from now, your friends, gather again on social media, like, hey, you know what we should do? We should go back to Disneyland again, just like we did when we were 18, and you're all gonna go again. It's gonna be different. It's not gonna be the same. You're going to the same place, but it's not the same place. It's changed a little bit. You're gonna say, did they change that ride? Remember when they used to sell the such and such? Oh man, those lightsaber churros, Oh man, but here's the thing, you're also not the same. You're 15 years more experienced. You're 15 years further along in life. You're not the same person either. None of us is the same person. And so there's little tiny degrees that we don't even notice. All of a sudden we find ourselves 20 years, 30 years from now wondering, God damn it, Jonathan.
What did you... Don't worry about it.
Nothing you want to see, and nothing that wouldn't land us all in court. You have your hand up. That'll be a good time. Yeah. it'd be a good time to go to you now.
Oh yeah, don't you think, like, I guess you could say, a way you could go against this push is by saying you could film everything? Because I mean, filming something is capturing that one moment forever and ever. And sure, you can relive it, but you can always rewatch it.
You're capturing the visuals of it. Kind of, but you're not capturing the first person view of it. And when you go back and you watch it again, you're not the same person. You're seeing it differently. Is there think about, like, for example, when you were, even now, think about what your favorite movies are right now. I was listening to this person do a film review of the movie Red Dawn. Have you heard of the movie Red Dawn? It's an old movie.
Oh, wait, is
And
it the one with the war game channel, right?
what's that?
Like a war game?
Not a game, but yeah. It's a movie essentially, they did there was a remake about it a few years ago, but they're reviewing the original one. And in short, it's about the United States being invaded by, I want to say it was like Cuba and the Soviet Union, I want to say. They were communists in any event, but it's like an alternate history thing where they win. And so the opening scene, it shows like paratroopers landing, and it's at a high school in the Midwest, and the teacher goes outside, "What's going on out here? Hey, what are you guys doing? You guys are landing in the wrong place," because he doesn't realize it's an invasion. They kill him, and then they start shooting up the school. That was back before it was, a thing to shoot up schools, right? And so the high school students, they all they're running, and they jump into a pickup truck, and they flee, and they head up into the mountains. And their parents are captured, and they're like, "What do we do? What do we do?" So they go to a store, and they get all, like a place where they sell guns, and the guy who owns it gives them all the guns, and he's like, "Go up in those mountains, and don't you come down until this is all over with." And that's what the movie's about. It's about this group of high school kids who are trying to get along, and they're fighting like this resistance against the invaders. And I remember seeing it when I was a little kid, and I was just like, "God damn right." That's what it's like. And they have this very famous scene from the movie where their high school mascot were the Wolverines. And so there's a scene where they win a battle, and they're like holding up their rifles going, "Wolverines!" And I'm like, "Yeah." And then I heard someone doing a movie review of it the other day, and he was just tearing the movie apart. Not making fun of it, but just like, this movie was not what I thought it was going to be, and he's tearing it apart. And I was just like, shut up. Every point he made was true. There's almost no character development. The battle scenes are hokey and everything, but bad. But 6 or 7 year old Scallon saw that and was like, "God damn right, that's what you do." And I watch it now, it's just like, you threw a grenade in a tank, really? And the whole thing blew up? Like, that's seriously? You're running around out in the mountains and you're using really basic camouflage that's working? But why? The movie hasn't changed, but the person seeing it has changed. And you'll look back on your movie and you'll wish you could feel the same way as you felt when you first saw that movie. Like I said, the tragedy of it can be when you experience new movies that make you feel great ways, but you don't take the time to indulge it and really sit and go, "That's pretty cool how that made me feel. That's pretty cool how that made me think." There would be people in your life who you're not going to understand them right now. And then you're going to get older and you're going to say, "Man, I wish I had that person around. Man, I wish I could hear those things right now. I would be different if I could just hear them. I wish I understood them back then." You just weren't capable of understanding, but you got little things out of it, hopefully. And that changed you in little ways. And you go back to it, and it's funny, you might be thinking like, "Man, if I heard the things back then that I hear now," and you can go back and maybe look at old emails or something from what that person told you, and be like, "Oh wait, they did tell me back then. Wow, why didn't it change me?" It did change you. But you weren't capable of being changed in the way that you wish you could. In other words, at 30 years old, you're going to be thinking like, "Man, if only 15-year-old me could have heard this." 15-year-old you probably did hear it. You just weren't capable of being changed because you were 15. I think back to, I was coaching baseball here once, and in baseball, when you hold a baseball bat, you're supposed to hold it with your knuckles like this, lined up. It's really uncomfortable for a lot of people because when you grab a bat, most people just kind of grab it like this. It's the wrong way to hold a bat. You need to hold it by lining up your knuckles like so. This is just one example. So when I was coaching, I would tell the players, "Line your knuckles up." "Oh, it's uncomfortable, coach." Of course it's uncomfortable. You've done it wrong your whole life. I'm telling you right now, this is how you do it. Go watch professional baseball. You will not see hitters hitting without their knuckles lined up. It allows for different wrist movements, allows you to get your hands inside, a whole bunch of mechanical things. And the players would resist me on it. which just blew me away. I've never encountered that before in any sports program. And I was like, is it like this high school thing where people act like that? I've never experienced that before. And so there were several things like that. So there's one player, he ends up, when he's a senior, he goes off to his like baseball camp, which is being run by a bunch of college coaches. And then he comes back and he's just like, Coach, dude, I learned so much. He's talking about things he learned. He says, you should go to this thing, man. You should go learn from these guys. I'm thinking like, yeah, it's not like I played Division I baseball at UCLA under the winningest coach in college history. Right? I'm like, what could I learn? And he starts explaining to me about lining his knuckles up. And I'm like, whoa, why would you do that? I don't get it. And the other players, he wasn't very smart. The other players were there and they were laughing, and he was explaining about how it changes wrist mechanics. And then finally, someone says, stupid, he's been telling us that for 2 years. He's like, he's never said that before. And there were a couple things like that. And he was like baffled, and he was convinced. He thought everybody else was crazy, even though there were like 7 other players standing around saying, he's been telling us that for 2 years, dude. And that's as long as I coached here. That's why I left. And why didn't he get it? Is it because he's stupid? Well, he was, but that wasn't why. It was because he just wasn't ready to receive it. Sometimes you're just not ready to receive things. The river that's going past you, it's time, it's experiences. Sometimes you're just not ready to receive the lessons that are possible. Imagine if imagine if you caught all of the lessons that passed by you in life. My God, you'd be a god. But sometimes there are people who sow. In other words, you lay down the seeds in the soil, and then there are people who harvest. In other words, the seeds were planted by somebody else years ago, and then you come along and you say something, and someone goes, oh my God, you've changed my life. What a wonderful influence you are. What a wonderful intellect you are. Some of you will go to college and you'll come across professors, and you'll be like, my God, I wish we had PhD people in high school teaching us. If only, right? Why? You're not ready to receive it. You're not in the environment ready to receive it. You can get frustrated and pissed off about it, but I don't know, man. Were you ready to receive it? The stuff that you're trying to pass on to others? Patience, love. You're not the same person. Nobody is. It's not the same situation. It looks similar, and it's only the roughness of our eyes and the roughness of our intellects that we think any two situations are the same, or any two people are the same. I was talking yesterday to a class, it wasn't my own class, and I gave the analogy of if you take a car, let's say, I'll leave it with this, but you take a car and you put it out in a cornfield and you leave it there for 50 years. You come back after 50 years. What's that car look like? Rusted out. Yeah. What's that? Plants all around it, growing around it, and you're just like, wow, why? Why does the sun destroy it like that? Why do the elements destroy it like that? And then you come back, let's say, 50 years to a cornfield. What are you going to find after 50 years with that cornfield?
Corn.
Yeah, big, tall, strong corn. Isn't that weird? The same elements that rust iron will ripen corn. Now, I say that and you might think like, yeah, stupid, because they're different things. Okay, you're right about both parts. I'm stupid and they're different things. But I will ask you this, why is it that two human beings can experience the same thing very differently? Get different things out of it, notice different points. In other words, why is it that two people can experience the same elements and come back dramatically differently? Yeah, but what does that tell you about us? Why is it that the same elements that ripen corn will rust iron, when the same elements that will, if you take 2 cars and you put them out there, they're both going to rust. Take 3 cars, they're all going to rust. But you take 3 people and you're going to get 3 dramatically different things. Because as, how do I say it? We're made of the same stuff. We're made of DNA. We're all made of the same. So why are we so differently affected by the world around us? That means something, man. That matters. Think about it. We should all react the exact same way. Oh, but we don't. I know we don't. That's why we're having this conversation. Well, because our minds are different. Yes, that means something. That means that you're not just a body. You're not just something physical. You're something so much more than just that. I don't know if you need a deeper proof than just that. Because if we were all just a body and we were all just biological agents, then our minds would react to everything exactly the same. You look at ants, and they, do you have like the one ant who goes off by himself and says, "I got to be me"? No. Even with cats, little personality quirks here and there, but they're not. But cats are cats for the most part. And humans were so dramatically different. That's because the important part of us is always changing. And that's because we're capable of changing, because we're so much more than just a physical anything. So I'll stop there, otherwise we'll be here for the rest of the semester. Questions, comments, concerns, complaints, criticisms, critiques?